What's up, guys? I'm Steven.
And I'm Will. And this is the Post P Chronicles.
So, Will, what's new?
Man, we got a lot in store for you. So, as you can see, I hope you can see, this is the Post P Chronicles shirt. This is the first of many shirts that we plan on doing. So, don't forget, get yours before they're too late.
For a good cause.
It's definitely for a good cause for Uganda. I hope you can see the back. They can't see the back. Should I show them the back? I'm going to show them the back. All right, I'm going to show them the back. I'm going to show them the back. Show them the back. Show them the back. That's the back, all right? It's never too late to be great. Proceeds going to all the orphanages and the prisons that we will be visiting in Uganda. $25 support, but look fly while you're doing it. All right. Now, with that being said, we have an incredible guest for you. My friend, great man, Leo Sambrano. How you doing, Leo?
I'm doing great, man. I'm very blessed to be here today, and I just want to say, Steve, thank you for inviting me to be on this podcast. And Will, it's a pleasure to see you once again in a better environment. And like I said, man, to be here on this podcast with Post P Chronicles is a very, very great thing for me. You know what I'm saying? In my transition to life and where I'm at, where I'm heading, and where I'm going. So thank you guys.
Most definitely. So like we say to all our guests, tell us your story, man. Where you from?
Well, my story is a little bit different. You know, I was born in Fresno, California, and moved to San Diego. Okay. So my dad's family is from Fresno. My mother's family is from San Diego. So as a youth, as a child, I was bounced from Fresno to San Diego very frequently because my grandfather lived out here up in Ramona, and we just, you know, we lived here in San Diego, my mom, and then my dad is from the Central Valley. So I bounced back and forth. And
real quick, were your mom and dad together?
Yes, yeah, but yeah. My parents have been married for over 52 years, I think.
Congratulations.
So they've showed me what a marriage and what a relationship is supposed to be.
So you had a pretty good upbringing with a steady household?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. You know, I come from a very religious family. Both of my parents are Catholics. So I kind of had that strict structure growing up, and I kind of rebelled, you know. Being forced to go to church, forced to go to Sunday school, forced to do all these things. And as a kid, I rebelled. And
how did you rebel as a kid?
Oh, like, you know, I was fascinated with that street life at a young age. Right. You know, so I was always one of those persons who stood out in the streets all night. You know, I was one of those kids that ran the streets.
So I got a question, because you had two great parents, right?
Yes.
You're still really close with your parents.
Yes.
And hold your father.
Oh yeah.
High regards. But for someone who has a kid who ends up in the street life and they're thinking, like, what am I doing wrong? You know, you can't say what your parents did wrong, or what would you say to a parent like, hey, this is what you're missing?
Would it be the strict upbringing where you felt overbearing, so you had to rebel, or is it just you were a bad child?
No. I just think the structure of being in a strict environment as growing up, and my father, he was, like I said, I do look up to my father in high regards. He was a hard worker, always had provided for us. I remember we've always had brand new shoes and the things that we needed for school. You know, I grew up in a 4-bedroom house with a swimming pool in the backyard. Like, I grew up very well, and my father was just always working, you know. And I think I got that trade from him too, because that's all I do is work, you know. And I've always worked, you know. If you got a job, like, I've never been an individual who just sits on my pockets. Yeah. Like, I'm gonna get it done.
So at what age did it start to go downhill, or you started to get into that real trouble?
Okay. So it wasn't until I want to say 10 years old, I went to juvenile hall for the very first time for joyriding. My older homeboys stole a car and left it on my street. And after they left, I went back over there trying to start it up. The only thing is I couldn't drive because it was a stick shift. So I got in the car, started it, and it just happened to be the cops came, and I took off running, and you know.
You didn't even get nowhere.
Yeah, and
you was joy sitting.
Yeah, and they came and they took me to juvenile hall for the day, and they let me go. But that was the start of it, and then later on, I started off in petty crime, stealing car stereos and speakers and whatnot. And
this is all the majority of that's in Fresno at this
Yes,
time,
that was in Fresno. That is correct. And then, so majority of my crime was in Fresno as a juvenile. It wasn't until I moved to San Diego that I started getting into like more serious crimes and, you know, at a young age, I had my share of juvenile hall camps and you know, the best way I can describe it is, you know, at the age of 10, I started off in juvenile hall. By the age of 12, I was literally a ward of the state, you know, and then by the age of 13 and 14, I was doing a little stretch in a juvenile camp, got out, had my son. I was a teen parent.
At 14?
At 16.
16, okay.
And I got out of camp when I was 16, had my son when I was 17, was a teen parent, high school dropout. I was selling drugs to provide for my family at that time, and still into the criminal mentality of breaking into cars and stealing cars. And then, and just to fast forward, so I'm 17, just had my son, was excited that I had a little boy. His name is Michael. I love you, boy. And the thing is, I only lasted a year. I came back to San Diego, got drunk, stole a car, was going across to TJ to go sell it, and it just didn't happen that way. And instead, I was on a high-speed chase, had the Highway Patrol, Harbor Police Department, and everybody chasing me. And I ended up having a DUI and high-speed chase, and there was a fatality in there. And that is at the age of 18, had a fatality, went to prison, and that's when things changed. And I was incarcerated for over 24 years.
So that led to a life sentence, correct?
Yeah. I got sentenced by the state of California. I got sentenced to 18 to life for that, which would have really been vehicular manslaughter, but instead they charged me with second-degree murder because I was in the commission of a felony, evading people, and somebody got injured, and because I was in the stolen vehicle, and they were in the pursuit of me, and I killed somebody during that pursuit.
So 18, getting a life sentence. Sounds like at this point you're already spending more time in juvenile hall and prison than you are outside.
Correct.
What's going on in your mind at 18? No big deal, or oh shoot?
I gotta say, and I'll be honest, of course, I wanted a different life, but it was already too deep. I already crossed that boundary, I already crossed that line, and I told myself, you know, I'm a gang member, and I'm gonna push it, and I'm gonna do what I have to do. And once I got this life sentence, things really changed. You know, I got involved in trafficking narcotics while I was in the county jail here in San Diego. I was sending heroin in through cards, and of course, anybody in prison, when you have drugs, you become famous. You know, people like you. And at a young age, at 18 years old, I was sending hot mail into myself and getting heroin in, and I established myself as a drug dealer.
So you're already
in the game. I'm
saying that the life sentence didn't affect you because you were probably like, whatever, it's life sentence anyways.
Yeah.
I'm going to do what I got to do while I'm in here.
Oh, 100%. 100%. That was totally my mentality. I said, man, I'm never going home. Had my moment with my parents. Of course, they were heartbroken. And, you know, like they always said, they raised me better. And I chose a different lifestyle. I chose that street life. I chose that gang-related lifestyle. And I was going to be a gang member. You know, that's what I wanted to be growing up, you know. I was going to be a gang member. I was going to be a gangster. And
You did it to the fullest.
And I did it to the fullest, to the point where I was serving a life sentence. And like I said, I've been incarcerated the majority of my life. And I don't even know how I'm here, but the only thing I can say is by the grace of God that, you know, he has a different purpose for me. And I'm here today being able to share my story with Post P Chronicles and any other viewers out there. And like I said, I served, out of that 18 to life sentence, I served 23 years straight. Got out on, I did my board date and got out. They gave me a 5-year denial, got out, started changing some of my behaviors. And the only thing I can say is I really had to fight for my life. Like, meaning in a positive way, meaning like board is actually going to give me a chance to come home if I can do these things. Stay disciplinary free, stay clean. All these things, a report, go to these programs, self-help groups, and all these things. And they said they'll let me go home, you know, and I fit under the SB 261, which is a juvenile lifer, meaning they were giving me action. They were giving me get backs to say, hey, if we see some change, you can go home. And that's when I said I had to fight for my life. I said I would do it any other way.
Right.
Why can't I do this
right here,
right now, for my freedom? And there's a thing that I stand by, and it's called the 3 F's. And it's faith, family, and my freedom. And I get a little emotional talking about it because I know I was serving that life sentence, so I didn't have that hope that I was ever going to come home. And now today, I'm out here as a college student. I'm with Palomar College, Rising Scholars. I work on campus as a mentor.
Married. Got a wife, got a family.
Oh, my wife. Anybody who knows me, Janelle is my rock, man. She picked me up at the bottom. You know, I'm out there swimming with sharks. She couldn't stop the boat, but she threw me a life preserver, and she said she'll be on the other side if I can make it. And I made it to the other side. And like I said, man, she's been rocking with me for over 18 years while I was incarcerated.
I like that analogy. You know, she couldn't stop the boat, but she threw me a life preserver and said, if you can make it, I'm going to be over here.
And she was right there waiting. And
so,
she was right there.
Let me ask you this, because we talked about all the great things you did, right? Mm-hmm. But then we also talked about 24 years. 24 years is a long time in prison.
2+ decades,
and you started off with the mindset that I'm never going home.
Oh, for sure.
Right? But then you also, at some point, came to the realization, like, I can go home. So at what point in your time, because we talked about it, you did your whole time on a level 4, which means you wasn't playing no games in prison. So at some point, when you was with all the activities, you said, no, I want to go home. So somebody who's going through that right now, what point did you say, hey, my freedom is worth so much more than this right here? What point did you find that? What time did you find yourself at that point?
You know, just like anybody else, you know, 24 years incarcerated, I done witnessed and seen and participated in a lot of violence and seen a lot of violence while I was incarcerated. And I ain't gonna candy coat it. And I just knew that there was another lifestyle out there for me that I've never experienced because I've been incarcerated the majority of my life. And that motivated me to change my lifestyle, and it all started through education. I started going to school and started leaving the bullshit. I mean, leaving everything behind.
It's bullshit. You stopped leaving the bullshit
and leaving everything behind. And I started going to that classroom, and I got my GED. And after I got my GED, I enrolled in college courses, and I started taking college courses while I was incarcerated. And I was actually having different dialogue and conversations with different individuals, and I no longer was talking about this, what, and the other, and chasing dope and all this other stuff. I was actually in the classroom with a professor, speaking with them, getting knowledge about, like, hey, Leo, you can actually do this. Hey, Leo, you are passing your class. That you got an A.
Real goals now.
Yeah,
real conversation.
Yes, and that excites me. Like, it still does. Like, you know, that excites me to know, like, I got a purpose. I know what I got a direction now. Like, I know what I want, you know? And that's where a lot of things started changing. You know, I was no longer on the yard no more. I was distancing myself from a lot of the activities, and the homies that needed to know knew that I had a chance to go home, and they supported that. But of course, with the prisoner mentality and the jailhouse rules, if anything happened, they knew I was going to participate, even though they're like, "You're going home. Go home, Leo." But I was still out there during those times that things got funky.
Was it difficult?
Oh, it was extremely difficult because, like I said at the beginning of this thing, I was I was a lifer. You know, usually lifers raise their hand for anything.
You can count on me.
Yeah, you can count on me, and I still had that mentality, knowing that that parole just told me that they'll let me go home, and I still was taking those penitentiary chances of trafficking narcotics, participating in illegal activities, and violence on the yard. I still was doing that stuff.
Let me ask you this, because I've been there, right? And it just, people don't understand, and now you have the chance to let us know, like, people don't understand the how hard it is, you know, to want to do good, but that pool.
Especially if you've already made a name for yourself.
You've already made a name for yourself.
Expected to do.
Expected.
You're Riggs, right? We know what Riggs is going to do. We got to call on Riggs when we need something. He's like, I'm trying to go home.
I'm trying to do something different.
I know about you, though.
Yeah. How hard is that?
It was challenging, but like at the end of the day, the real ones that knew me, they were rooting for me to go home. They knew I had a chance, and they said, "Hey, Leo, go home, bro." Like, those were the ones that motivated me, that knew the real, that said, "Man, hey, you did your dirt. You put in your work. You did your share. You got a chance to go home. Go home, little brother. Like, do you. Like, go home." And those are the individuals that encouraged me to say, you know what, like, you know, the rest of the individuals, of course, they're gonna want me in that circle. They're gonna want me to get high with them. They're gonna want me to, you know, participate in the bullshit. But when I started dissing myself and I started saying, you know what, this is what I'm doing. Either you respect it or not, but this is where I'm going.
Yeah, I like what you said. And I don't want to gloss over that. When you started hanging out with different people with different goals, the conversation changed.
100%.
You know what I mean? And, you know, it's from violence and drugs, what I got to do today, make a name for myself, to what am I going to do when I get out? What can I set myself up for? I got a future now, you know? Like, if me and Will are talking, we're talking about future and goals and big things. Like, when you hang around the right people, goal-driven people, you're going to be a goal-driven person. When you hang around dirtbags just talking low and bad about everyone else, you're going to become that type of person. So when you're around the right people, the conversation is going to be different. And I love that you said that, because that helped change your mindset. You're in class, you're not on the yard. You're talking to people that also want a future. So your conversation is now about the future instead of my current reality in prison.
Yes.
I love that you said that.
And it's so true, you know. And then another big part of it that changed my life was my son. There was an incident with my son that really changed my life, because he was recently released from county jail, and there was a gang related shooting, and my son was shot 4 times, once in the head, once in the back, and his fiance, you know, was shot dead. And that day, I remember waking up, and, you know, like I said, I still knew the fellas. The fellas still knew who I was. Like you said, I already made a name for myself in where I was at. And I just remember a cell phone coming and sliding underneath my door early in the morning, and they said, "Hey, call home." And I already knew that wasn't a good sign when one of my homies is sliding me a cell phone to say, "Call home." I call home, and they tell me the news. They say, "Hey, they just killed little Brianna, and they just shot your son." And, you know, I low-key lost it. Like, I really did. Like, I said, what? And I'm doing all these positive things to change, to go home to them. And then I find this out, and then I find out that, you know, I don't know the people personally, but I knew their neighborhood. And, of course, the first thing that comes to mind, like, I'm going to retaliate.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to go do what I have to do. and I'm fighting for my freedom to go home to my loved ones, to my son, to my wife, to my family. And then this news comes to me. And that was like a hard decision to make. Do I let this go? Or do I get out and go retaliate if I have a chance? And I talked to my son. We had a conversation as two grown men. And he said, hey, Pops, I don't want you to retaliate. Let that shit go. If you come home, I need you home. And hearing that changed me. It broke me and changed me because of who I am and where I come from. Automatically, like I would have stuck somebody on the yard for less than that. I would have, you know what I'm saying? Like in a riot, like it would have went down anyways, just over because you didn't pay your dope debt, and I'm out there with a knife stabbing these dudes because it's your car against my car, and your homeboy couldn't pay my homeboy back. So now we're in a full-fledged riot. So doing this for my son would have been nothing. It comes without even thinking off the top I was going to take care of business. But to hear my son say, Pops, if you come home, let it go. And I did. And that was something hard to swallow. And that was something that I still deal with to this day. But I know I made the right choice. Because if I say I love my loved ones and I say I want my freedom, then I had to let that go. And I did.
So let's talk about you getting out, right?
Yes.
You had this light bulb moment. Your son was one of them.
Yeah.
You said you made a promise to God.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about that for a time. What was your promise and what was the changing event? Obviously, that was one of them. And now you're going home. You got this promise with God. What's going on?
Yeah. So, while I'm in my cell and I remember everybody was, they kind of knew that I was getting close to getting out. And people knew that I had got a date. And they had told me, hey, Leo, I heard the board's going to give you some action. I said, yeah, I got a date, man. I just got to stay out the way. And they respected that. And then I remember in my own personal space, I remember saying, hey, God, if you give me a second chance, I submit. I'll break everything down. Everything that I was groomed to do and the way to think and act and do things, I submit. I submit right now. And there's a dude by the name of Jason, and he told me, he goes, Leo, remember what you said while you were in jail? You're out here now. Submit and honor your word. And just like when I was in prison, I try to honor my word as best as I can because that's all I had. And I try to conduct myself accordingly, especially being a dope dealer, especially, all these things. It's all about your word. If you tell me you're going to pay me, I expect you to pay me, and vice versa.
Facts.
If I owe you, if I tell you I got you, I got you.
It's done.
It's done. And I try to conduct myself like that in prison. So when Jason told me that, like, I ain't going to lie, like he broke me down because he also was a Christian. And he also changed his life. And he also been in and out of the system for over 20 plus years and in and out and into this criminal life. And when he told me that, I said, yeah, I did. And I got my freedom. And I'm here today. And then I got saved I got saved just immediately when I came home. The first thing I did, I got saved. And then the following month, I got baptized. And after that, literally my life changed. But keep in mind, I still suffered from a lot of addictions. I was a dope dealer, and I also was a heroin addict and just dope fiend.
And you haven't had freedom for, 24 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Going to not only 24 years, you've been in and out since 10 years old.
Yeah.
How old are you when you got out?
I was 42.
32 years in and out of prison, 24 straight consecutive, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, 24 straight, and then of course as a youth, I was in and out of juvenile hall for like petty crime, and then they gave me a little stretch in the youth authorities in camp, and when I got out of there, I was only like 16, and then I had my son when I was 17, and then by the time I was 18, I was serving a life sentence for second-degree murder.
So before we get into what you went through, getting saved, giving your life to Christ, getting baptized is good, but a lot of people think when they're Christian, all of a sudden all the problems go away, their addictions, oh, life's great. That's not true. What are some practical things you did to overcome addiction dope dealer, all this mindset and the behavior that you've had ingrained in you for 24 years?
All I can say is God had a purpose for me, man. And God showed me if I did the right thing and made the right choice, that he was going to take care of me. He was going to get me out of anything that I was in. And I always used to say this saying, like, you can send me to the moon and I'll be straight because I know I have my faith. And he had walked me through all these years of incarceration and out of harm's way. And I know he has a better purpose for me, and I now see it, because like I said, now I have a direction, and now I have a purpose, and now I have a reason of living, you know. And because of that, I'm so grateful. And now I'm just here trying to give back to my community by sharing these little parts of my life, so that other individuals can see what I'm doing. And to say, this dude just got out of prison, this guy is doing this, and he's, like I said, man, I didn't been off the top. First 6 months out of prison, I went to Washington, D.C., went to the White House, experienced New York Times Square, just recently came back from a beautiful family vacation in Cape Cod. Like, so much that I've experienced in a 1 year period of 12 months, then got off parole. Once I got off parole, I was free to just do whatever, and still dealing with adjusting back into society after 24 years has been, I would say it has its challenges, but the biggest part also, aside from my faith, was school. You know, I got involved in school, and I got involved in, enrolled in college, and back to my prison story as well, finding that education, finding that purpose, finding that, you know, I was fascinated with that. And I got a small story to share. Is growing up, I never been to the library, as crazy as it is. Like, yeah, at school I knew what a library was, but, you know, I never used to go to the library. My parents never took me to the library. I didn't know. It wasn't until I was an adult that I actually experienced the library, and was really, like, fascinated with it. Like, swear to God. Man. Yeah, the library.
Look at all these books.
Hey, and it was crazy, because I go to the 5th floor and check out stuff over there.
Wait,
and
you went to the Library of Congress?
No.
Oh, now that would have been a library to go to.
Yeah, no, not in Congress, but just in general, like
a big library right
here.
Yeah,
yeah, right there.
It's a big one.
Yeah, that one too. Man, that was my little hangout right there. I stood over there. I stood over there,
wandering through that
and just checking it out. And it's crazy, because I was so fascinated with that, and especially with my educational journey, which, you know, I'm going to school now for sociology and drug and alcohol counseling. You know, by the time I complete Palomar, I'll have a degree in sociology, as well as AODS, which is drug and alcohol counseling.
That's amazing. So let's talk about, you know, your Post P Chronicles, because education has been your catalyst for change.
Yes,
and you are not just learning, you know, at a college. You are an active participant in other people learning. What do you do at Palomar?
Oh yeah, like, aside from being a student, I also work there. I'm part of a program at Palomar College called Rising Scholars, and I work with formerly incarcerated students, and they come to our program if they've been incarcerated or if they're carceally impacted. So we also deal with, like, if your parent has, or your dad has been incarcerated, or your mom, or, you know, someone, you're impacted by incarceration, right, or you personally, and
system impact.
Yeah, system impact, correctly. And what we do is we get them, and, you know, we give them that support, and we let them know that they're not alone. And because that's kind of like how I was when I got there. I was like, okay, I knew what I wanted, and I was gonna get it. I was gonna go to class, and I was gonna get it done. But I was still like a fish out of water there. You know, now I'm on a college. I come from a penitentiary to a college. Mm-hmm. It's a big change. And but Rising Scholars, they open their doors. They embraced me, and they said, "Hey, there's other people like you here." Mm. The professor that we got here, Mr. Martin Leyva, formerly incarcerated, got his doctors. He teaches sociology. Check out some of his classes. Enrolled in his classes, loved it. He's an amazing professor. You're dope. And the thing is, you know, they really show you that you can be formerly incarcerated and you can get your degree and you can better yourself and you can have and make an impact 100%. And that's where it's at, you know. Really, and what we represent is education, not incarceration. That's what we represent at Palomar as Rising Scholars. And I'm a firm believer of second chances, and just what that statement says, education and not incarceration. Because when you start locking up these juveniles at young ages, you really do change their mentality of how they want to be when they come back.
Me and Will even talked about this the other day, you know, and now what you would have done at 16, 17, 18, because the courts determine your brain's not fully developed.
Absolutely.
It would be a massively lighter sentence. You said someone shot someone in the face the other day.
And he was like, hey, I'm going home in like 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
You know? Will got 16 years for something he didn't even do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's crazy.
I'd have been sent home now. Under that same crime, I would never went to prison.
Yeah.
Wow.
But, I mean, they make a good point because your brain's not fully developed and it changes them completely.
And I fall under that whole guideline. And that's what gave me action to come back and go to board. And because I am a YOP offender.
Scott Budnick, ARC.
ARC, all these people, all these advocates that push for what you just said, that the mind is not fully developed yet. And, you know, I was 18, you know, I made some impulse decisions. And, of course, as I sit back now as a mature adult and analyze what really went wrong in my life, it was just all impulse. I didn't care about consequences. I didn't even think about going to jail. I never even thought about getting caught
or killing someone in a
high-speed chase. And that's what it is. And I want to really get a little deep right here. And this was at my parole board hearing. They took me to parole, to the board. And of course, I had a stack of certificates. I was already changing. I was already, my mindset was, I got a chance to go home. Let's do the right thing. And I was going to these groups and doing everything. And I remember my attorney that they provided for me. He told me, hey, Mr. Sambrano, I don't think it's a good idea that you go to your parole hearing. And I said, well, why not? He goes, because you have a high risk of violence and a lot of other stuff. It doesn't look good. And I said, well, I want to go. Like, I want to go to my parole hearing. Like, I understand you as my counsel.
So you're saying don't go and he'd represent you?
Yeah, he's telling me not to go because I have a high risk evaluation.
Like
and he says I have a high risk evaluation and that they're more likely going to shut me down.
Same thing.
And he was telling me not to go. And I said, no, I want to go because my last prison infraction was a dirty drug test. I came back from visit. One of my buddies had, scored, and he was like, hey, Leo, come here. And he gave me a chunk of black tar heroin. And I said, all right, come on. And I went to my cell and I got jiggy with it and I got loaded. And it was just ironic that my door cracks open and they say, hey, Sambrano, they want you in the program for a UA. And keep in mind, like, I had just got done, blasting off to the moon and feeling good. My door's wide open and I'm like, man, shut my door, man. I don't UA. I'm not on no contract of UAs. They want you for a UA. And I go up there and I talk to the sergeant and I tell him, hey, man, this is and that. He was like, hey, I don't know what you're going through. They want for a UA. Because I was trying to fight, because I'm loaded. Like, I'm loaded and I'm like, hey, Sarge, what's this about? I don't do UAs. I'm programming. So he tells me, hey, they called you. They just a random. I said, a random? Like, are you serious? So I went over there and UA'd and it came back positive for heroin. And that was my last infraction. So fast forward back to parole hearing. So I remember telling the board, I said, look, And I get emotional talking about it because I remember it, because this was my life that I was fighting for my date, for my freedom. And I remember telling the board, I said, look, I know I did a lot of bad things. I said, but I'm coming here for one reason and one reason only. And that's to give closure to my victim's family. You can give me a 10-year denial. You can give me a 15-year denial. You can give me a 20-year denial. It's not about that. I'm here today to give my victims closure for my actions, for the crime that I committed. And that has affected me in a major way. You know, when you take someone's life, it really takes a piece of you. And it took me many years to forgive myself. And it wasn't until I was able to actually forgive myself that I can help others, you know? And I remember telling my victim's father that I was sorry for what I did, and that if he had a little piece of his heart to forgive me for what I did. And that's the life that I took. And I say that because I took something that didn't belong to me, and that was the life of Mr. Ryan. And to be able to stand there as a man, as a mature man, and ask him to forgive me, and the deputy commissioner and the council members there on my prison board said they ain't never had this happen on their watch, like with them, but it's happened before. And I said, hey, if you can forgive me, you know, and if not, I understand. But I'm coming here today to give you guys closure. His mom couldn't even speak to me because she was crying. His father couldn't speak to me because he was in tears. And as a man, I was crying because I just wanted to give him closure for what I did. And you know what? He looked at me, he said, Mr. Sambrano, I forgive you. And I broke down, like literally broke down. And they had a recess after that. I came back, they offered me a parole date, and I'm here. And I'm here. And I'm here today. And it just shows growth, and it shows that, you know, you can make a mistake as a youth. You can make a mistake and you can change, and you can better yourself, you can educate yourself, and you can change. And I'm a strong believer of second chances and about education. And that's where I found my direction, you know. I also work with troubled youth. I mentor troubled youth in Oceanside, you know, just to let them know, like, they don't have to go through what I went through. I'm telling you, I was incarcerated at the age of 10, ward of the state by 12, high school dropout, teen parent, and serving a life sentence by 18. Like, that's no life. That's no life.
You're just now starting your life.
And I'm just now starting life at 43 years old. But like I said, I couldn't have done it without the support of my wife, my family, the close friends that I have now. And I say friends and not homies, not homeboys, because where I move by myself. I don't have no entourage. I don't need no entourage. I don't need nobody. I make my own choices. I make my own decisions. And you can do the same thing. You don't need somebody telling you what to do. You can make those choices yourself.
You know what I love? Shoot, we get in the podcast right here.
Yeah,
you know
okay,
I mean?
Yeah.
Those words of wisdom, that's beautiful. And I hope everyone out there hears that. You know, one of the things that inspires me that you said, it's not like one class you took or one counseling session you took. You got clean because you now had a purpose, right?
Yeah.
Your purpose, you know, you made a promise to God, and God's like, you got a purpose. And now that you have a purpose, it kept you clean, it kept you out of drugs, it kept you out of trouble. Because now, you know, and what I like to tell people is, like, you don't need motivation, you need purpose. Right?
Absolutely.
You have
direction.
Motivation fades, happiness fades, external circumstances will change all that stuff.
Yes.
But when you have a purpose and a goal and a plan,
yes,
nothing's gonna touch you. And obviously you got to remind yourself sometimes, you know,
yeah,
there's things that go through life, but that purpose, you know, Will's got a purpose, I got a purpose, you got a purpose.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what keeps you on that path. You know, those hard days, you remember that purpose and that promise. right?
Absolutely.
And look at you. You're helping kids, youth empowerment. You're helping troubled youth.
Yes.
You're getting an education. Hopefully one day, I don't know, maybe I see you as a professor. College
That's
professor.
definitely
drug
uh,
and alcohol counseling. You're doing it all right now, and that's just inspiring. But that's birthed out of a purpose. You know what I mean? Your purpose before and your reality was
gang life.
I was trouble, drugs.
Yeah. 100%. And you're so right with that. Like, and I say these to the youth that I speak with. I said, look, man, I didn't have a direction growing up. I had 2 loving parents, but my vision was something else. I wanted to be someone else. I wanted to do other things that was not appropriate with my family in my household. So I ventured off to the streets, and, you know, I found a little way to go and made a name for myself, and that was it. I took off. But what I say to the youth is, without a direction, you're gonna get lost. And if you don't get lost, you're gonna crash. Because everybody who gets in their vehicle, the first thing they do is put their seatbelt on and put their GPS, because they got a direction to go. Because if not, they'll just be driving around town wasting gas. But when you have a direction, you know where you're going. You're going to point A to point B. So all I tell you is find your direction. Don't just get lost, because I did at a young age, and it cost me the majority of my life.
It's beautiful.
No, well, definitely, man, and you know, shout out to Janelle.
Oh yeah,
you know,
Janelle,
so,
you know I love you. You
you
my
know,
rock,
hey,
baby girl.
what's that,
You my diamond. You my diamond, baby girl. I've been married 7 years. I've been married 7 years, and she's been with me 18 years.
Wow.
18
And that's through my addiction. That's through the in and out of the hole, or ad set, however you want. We can go professional or just
the whole.
Yeah, the whole shoe terms. She did it all with me.
She says a woman of her word too. Here's the life raft. I'll be on the other side.
And she
waited
did,
for you.
And she did.
And she waited.
And you know, like I said, of course, all relationships are difficult, but you know,
it's worth working for.
Yeah, like I said, without her, I don't know where I would have been. You know, she's been my biggest supporter, my biggest fan, and you know, and I love you. I love you for the support. And this is a small story. In the beginning of our relationship, she didn't tell me she loved me when we met. The first thing she told me is that she believed in me. And as a gang member, I ain't never had anybody say that they believed in me. I've had people tell me they love me, like, I love you, dog, I love you, bro, I love you, homie. But this woman who was in love with me and knew me didn't tell me she loved me. She told me she believed in me. And I've never had those words said to me. So that meant a lot. And then, of course, she fell in love with me. But
that's almost just, I mean, I've been married today 1 week, you know.
Congratulations.
You know,
Congratulations.
I think one of the biggest thing, too, is my wife believes in me.
Yes.
And I do a lot of stuff. I'm all over the place. I'm going to Africa. I'm going to Mexico. Everything I do, but she believes in me.
Yes.
And that is like, there's a comfort in that, because it's like, okay, well, I don't want to let this person down, but there's someone at the end of the day that when everyone else doesn't believe in me, my closest person believes in me.
Yes.
Right.
I relate. Yeah. Like, I know that woman genuinely loves me. She believes in me, and she supports me. You know, sometimes I always tell her, sometimes I don't make always the right decision, but you still support me, you know, and that's huge in a marriage, in a relationship, you know. Like I said, man, I've heard I love you. It's a 4-letter word in prison. You know, they say it like saying fuck you.
4-letter word? That's funny.
You know, it's like saying fuck you. But at the end of the day,
it's all good. At the end of the day, you can keep going.
Oh, and so like I said, big shout out to my wife. Big shout out to my family.
Shout out to Palomar.
Oh,
Dr. Nora,
definitely Rising Scholars. Palomar College. You guys being a part of my educational journey has really changed the way I view things, and now I have goals and purpose, and working with troubled youth and outreach youth, and just sharing my story with those individuals that, you know, can relate to me. You know, I mean, not everybody's going to relate to me, and I understand that, but I know there's one person that I can say, hey, even though I was locked up the majority of my life, I turned it around, I changed, made better choices, and this is
look at you now, bro.
Yeah.
Look at you now.
I mean, your story inspires me.
Man.
Straight up, Steve. Straight up, brother.
I love it.
I mean, I seen the growth, man. I was there when you got baptized, bro. I remember that, you know, right in the front row. You see, with the camera like, that's my boy. Look at him.
Straight up, man.
Look at him. What is
this?
Some of the water got on my face. You know what I'm saying? I think it was one of the, he splashed me. That's what it was. He splashed me.
Change, man.
You know.
God, and a big shout out to God. Like, you know, like without God in my life and my faith, like I wouldn't be here today, Steve, being able to just sit here and be on this podcast with you guys and Post P Chronicles to say it's real, but there's, I believe, in second chances, third chances, fourth chances. Like, you can change, especially overcoming addiction. I was a heroin addict for over 18 plus years. Track marks all up my arm. Like, you name it, I did it, and I changed. Like, the real talk. Kicked it. Hardest thing I could do was on substance, like, you know, Suboxone and methadone. Kicked it, you know, did it all. I get chills talking about it because I know how much I love that drug and how much that drug had control over me. And to just overcome that addiction is powerful.
Powerful, bro.
Straight up.
Everything about you is powerful, bro. And it's been a pleasure to be a part of you telling your story. I promise you, your story is going to help so many. And what you're doing with your life at Palomar, you're going to continue to bless so many people coming after you, bro. This is truly just the beginning, man.
Straight up,
truly
man.
just the beginning.
Straight
Thank
up.
you. Thank you.
Thank you guys
for being here, bro.
Man,
You know,
Steve.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you,
Your story,
bro.
I love it.
Yeah.
Quick reminder.
Yeah.
We got shirts for sale. Like, subscribe. I'd like to thank the Gym Chula Vista for sponsoring this episode. And we got a lot of stuff coming, so stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Once again, I'm Steven.
I'm Will, and this is the Post P Chronicles.
Right here, Post P.
That was a great episode.
That was a great episode.
Good one.